Hi class, today I'd like to talk to you about ProConnect, and I'd like to go over what you should have done for Chapter 1. So this is ProConnect Chapter 1, the problem that you have to do. It's your last problem in Chapter 1. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to start ProConnect from the menu in Blackboard. So just click on ProConnect. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to sign in, or you're going to have to create an account. And to sign in, I use my email address. And then you'll have to put in your password. Now, I don't know what your password is, so you're going to have to remember it, and then you'll have to click sign in to get into ProConnect. And when I logged in, I'm at the welcome announcement here. And so if you want a tour, you can click on this and it'll show you a little bit about ProConnect. Now, I've been working in it for a little bit, and I think you have too. So probably what you will want to do is you will want to look for your saved return if you've already created a return. If you haven't created a return, what you would do is you would go to tax returns. This is another way you could get there. And there's a blue box up here which tells you to create the return. In this particular problem, I had been working on, you notice right here, it's got the year 2020. Because in your instructions for Chapter 1, you were used to use 2019. You need to click up here where it says Tax Returns 2020. There's a drop-down box beside of it, and you can go to 2019. And so what that will do is that'll bring up all the forms that are related to the year of 2019. And what you're going to be doing in this first chapter is creating a client. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. Now, you might notice here that I've already got my client created because I worked on this a little bit previously. But if you were to start from scratch, you would have to create a client. Notice on the left-hand side, they've got a menu here. And one way to do that is you could click on Clients and click Add Client where you see the blue button, and then you would fill in the information for that client. Now, because I've already got this client entered, I'm not going to do that for you, but this is how you create the new clients. And we're assuming that we're going to be a paid tax preparer for this course. And so all of the people that you're preparing taxes for are going to be your clients. So to get a new client, I'll just click on this, for example, and here's how you add the client. This is for an individual that we're doing this for, not a business. So you click on the button Individual, fill out the person's first name and last name from the information that was given, the date of birth, the tax ID, which in this case, if it's an individual, it's going to be a Social Security number. If it's a business, you're going to, the business should have their own tax ID. and you'll fill in the information for the email address if you have that. Some of this they didn't provide for us. Just put in the information that was provided. They did do a street address. This was for the state of Florida. It was Cocoa something Beach, I think it was. Um, or it may be something a little different than that. But anyway, just look at your instructions and fill in this information here. They're asking you for a mobile phone number. They're asking you for, excuse me, home phone number. None of that was provided for us. But once you get all the information entered in, just click save, and that will create this client for you. And like I said, I've already done this. So I'm going to get off of this screen here, but that's the way you would add a client. Also, if you're first starting with this, you're going to create a tax return. Because I've already created the tax return for this person, I don't want to do it again. But you'll see this button here, create tax return. And what should pop up is the type of tax return that you want to prepare. And it would be a 1040 tax return that we're working on for an individual. So we're working on the 1040 form for an individual. And once you select that, then you'll be able to add information to the return. Now, because I've already created this customer and the return already, I don't want to do it again, but I'm just trying to make you become familiar with some of the things that you would do once you come back into the problem to start to work for the second problem. Again, we're just doing the first problem, but I'm trying to get you to review what you would have done in the first problem. Since we're picking up in the middle part of the chapter 3, then I'm assuming that you've already done this problem. And according to my records, everybody's done it that I think are going to continue with the class. And it did look like she had graded those for chapter 1. So I know you've done chapter 1. So this might be a little bit redundant, but some of you may have missed some things in chapter 1, and I'd like to try to explain those to you. So once you've started a return for a particular client, I'm going to click on this client so it'll pick up the tax return that is prepared for him. Or you may be able to view it here too. I'm not real familiar with ProConnect, as you're aware, so I just found that if I clicked on this person's name here, it would take me to the tax return that I was working on, which would have been the 1040 form. I'm sorry, I clicked on something I shouldn't have. So see if I can get back to where we were before. All right, you still should be able to see what I'm looking at now. Got some things I have to move around on my screen so I can see where I need to go next. But as you can see, when I clicked on that client, what came up was the information that I had prepared for this client. Now, I want you to become familiar with these sections here. This is general. If we needed to change some information about the client, you could click on client information. If you want to add a dependent, here's where you add the dependent. Again, I have completed chapter 1 already, so I have the dependent information entered in for chapter 1. So I've noticed that on my screen here, I don't have up the instructions for chapter 1. So if you'll bear with me just a minute, I'm going to go back to Blackboard, and I'm going to go into where you can find the instructions. So she's got a place on Blackboard under assignments, which is where I was to start with, for the ebook. So I'm just going to click on the ebook here so I can launch the content. And I'm going to start with chapter 1 because that's what I want to talk about in this particular video. And we need to look at the cumulative software program. So here the cumulative software problem that you should be looking at. I'm going to create a new share just to make sure that you can see what I'm talking to you about. Okay, so you should be able to see now this cumulative software program or problem. And you can see we're going to be Albert Gator, and we're preparing the return for him and his wife who are filing a joint return. And here's for the year 2019. That's why I use 2019 on this particular problem. They ask you to do that. So Gators lived at 12 or 123450 Coca Shell Road, Coral Gables is the town in Florida. This is the zip code. And so you need all that information when you're filling out the client information that we're talking, that I showed you a while ago. Captain Gator is a charter fishing boat captain, but he's going to take 6 months off from his job in 2019 to train and study for his master's captain's license. In 2019, Albert received a W-2 form from his employer, Coconut Grove Fishing Charter. So this is very important when you're entering the information on Form 1040. This is where you would get the information to put in about the income. Also, they've given you information about the employee or the Albert Gator, his social security number and his date of birth. You need to put that on the Form 1040. So that's the information that you would have for the 1040 form. His wife is Allison Gator. It also tells you in this particular problem that they have a 17-year-old son whose name is Crocker. And Crocker's a full-time freshman at Brickell State University. So that would qualify him as a dependent. So you would have to enter in dependent information for Crocker. And his social security numbers here that you would have to enter in as part of the dependent information that I'm going to show you how to do. But this problem's where you're getting your information to put in for the dependent. When I go back to ProConnect, I'll show you how to do that. They also have another 18-year-old daughter who is a part-time student at Dade County Community College, but she's married to Sean Slacker, who is 19 years old and a part-time student at Dade County Community College too. Both Sean and Caitlin have a 1-year-old child, Wanda Slacker, and they gave you the social security number for that person. Cayman and Wanda live in an apartment up the street, and they have wages from their grandfather. They're working as apprentices in his business, and he's paying them $50,000 each, or a combined $50,000 total. And they're paying all their personal expenses. So basically what all that said was that the daughter couldn't be taken as a dependent. The only person that could be taken as a dependent is Gator's son, who is a full-time at the freshman at Brickell State University. They also have a savings account, and they receive some interest off of that savings account. This is a Form 1099 interest right here that they've given you that the bank would have sent to this person, and this person's going to give you this as well as their W-2 form so that you'll have the information that you need to fill out the Form 1040. So this is going to also go on 1040. It's taxable income. It's going to go on line 2 of 1040. So you need this information for this particular problem. And then it tells you that you're using, of course, ProConnect to complete Form 1040. That's what we'll be doing for Albert and Allison Gator for 2019. And they tell you to be sure to save your data input files when you're through with your chapters, so you'll have them to go back to in the next chapter, since this is a continuing problem. So read your instructions, because they have information that you need to help you to fill out ProConnect. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to share with you ProConnect again. Oops. Let me try this again. ProConnect. All right, now you should be able to see, no, that's excuse me, that's your textbook, your e-textbook. So let me try this one more time. Get on the right thing here. And let me go back to ProConnect. And let me see if you can see that now. I think I bumped you off again. Hold on just a minute. I'll figure out how we get there. All right. Now you should be back into ProConnect. I'm sorry about that. I'm still trying to learn how to do all this technology stuff. We're back at ProConnect, and what I had done is I had clicked on create a tax return. We're creating a tax return for our clients from Chapter 1, and I have already done that. So what you should be seeing is general on your screen, and the client information is here. So this is all the information that we just added for this particular tax return that came from your given information in your textbook. The next thing that we're going to be looking at in ProConnect is the dependent. So this is the dependent information that you also fill in and complete from your ebook or your textbook. All this is given information. And so he was a son, and this is his social security number. And his date of birth was 12/21/2002, and his name was Crocker Gator. This is the dependent information that you would complete for his dependent. The rest of this down here, this miscellaneous info, direct deposit, we're not going to be using that at this point in time in this problem. We're not going to be using community property income allocation. You're going to learn about that in another chapter. And all of this, you really didn't have to fill out anything for. Remember, we are going to be doing the 1040 form, and on the 1040 form, you will have income. And so what you'll want to do is enter the income from the W-2 form that was given. So I'm going to click on wages and salaries under income, and you would fill in the information for the employer identification number, which comes right off of your form. So I'm going to flip over here for just a second. And here's your W-2 form. I believe you can still see that. And the information comes from the W-2 form, box number 1, or excuse me, box B for the employer identification. And this is the employer's social security number that you could also enter in if it asks you for that. as well as your wages, your Social Security wages, all this information. This box number 1 is part of the income that would be entered for Gator. So the first thing they ask for is your employer identification number, and we pick that right up off of your W-2 form. They also want to know the name of your employer, which is also on the W-2 form, and the address. All that would be completed. And then you click on box number 1 for wages. You'd click on that and you would enter in 67024. And again, that information comes from your problem. And what they do is they round it up to the nearest dollar. So 67024 is the amount of wages that would have come from box number 1. So if you enter it in as 67, the program will round it up to the nearest dollar. So that's why we have 67204 here. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe you can enter this in from your W-2 form, or it may calculate it for you based on this information and what you filled out as your client information, because it would know that you are withholding as married filing jointly. So some of this information might fill in for you automatically, or you can manually enter it in too, just by clicking on the box and entering that information in. Again, this information comes from your W-2 form. So for your federal income tax, this is the amount that they withheld. So you would put that into your 1040 form in ProConnect. So that information goes right there. Your Social Security wages, you'll also enter that in from your W-2 form. For this employee, it have to be the very same as box number 1. And then it calculates for you, I believe, the Social Security tax automatically. But this information is also given in your W-2 form. So your Social Security tax is right here, $971.84, and they've rounded it to $972. The rest of this information you would fill in if it were on your W-2 form. None of this showed up on the W-2 form. They didn't have anything also in box 12 on your W-2 form, so you really don't have to put anything in here. But the key is, class, you would copy any information from your W-2 form that was given in here to the 1040 form. And this was for the state of Florida, but you can see here that they didn't put anything on the W-2 form about the wages that were withheld for state information. So we're just filling out the federal forms. We're not doing anything with the state income tax forms for this particular problem. But in the real world, you know, in those boxes, you'd have state income tax withheld if you're in a state that withholds income taxes. And you just fill it in according to what's on the W-2 form. And so the rest of this information, we really didn't need to do anything to, because they made this as simple as they possibly could for you. So we don't have to worry about the rest of the information. Just make sure that you put in all the information that they've given you from the W-2 form that you have to record. So that's how wages gets put on the Form 1040. Also on Form 1040, line 2B is the interest income. And you'll remember you received a 1099 interest form. So be careful here and make sure you put in the name of the bank, And I put this is a taxpayer that we are receiving this interest for, and that would be for their joint account. So I guess you could put 2 there. It probably wouldn't have mattered, but you definitely have to put in the correct amount of the interest. And again, I'm going to flip back to your problem instructions, and that information's right here. This was your Form 1099 interest. That 337.54 would be placed into the interest income form for the bank, and this was the rounded amount that went in here. If you had any dividend income or pensions or gambling winnings or any of this other information, you would just click on these and enter that in. This was a real simplified form, so we're going to go straight to the taxes, because I don't think you had, hold on a minute, let me click on deductions for just a minute. They didn't tell you about business use of home or anything like that, and you don't know about that now. There's no foreign income, there's none of this, so nothing would go in deductions. Under credits, I just clicked on that. There's really nothing that would go under credits here. So basically, you would go to taxes, and if you had any of these categories, you would list it. But this is real simple form. There was none of that we had to list. Under other, if you click on elections, election not to claim depreciation, we don't know anything about that. So, and we didn't do any state and local. There was no miscellaneous forms that we had to record. But if you did, this is where it's located, and this is where the information is that you would fill in for this. None of this applies to this particular problem. So technically, the only thing you need to do is put in your income, which was wages and salaries, and your interest income. That's all you needed to input for this, and the rest would be calculated for you. All right, and so you could input information on the return itself too, I believe, or no, this is where it comes up with this form here. But this is your general information that was added already. So the last thing to do in chapter 1 would be, you could click on here to check your return, and this is showing you some of the things that you probably need to go back and look at. I didn't choose to do any of those. The main thing is this is showing on here your 2019 income. This is what we entered in. This is what shows up on the 1040 form. Your interest income shows up on the 1040 form. So on your 1040 form that's going to be filed, your total income was this. They've calculated the taxes for you. You didn't have to go to a table to be able to calculate the taxes like we have to do by hand. They've used the standard deduction for married filing jointly in 2019. All that was entered for you and will show up on your return. So you didn't have to enter anything except the information about the client. You would have had to enter information about the W-2 form and the interest form that you received from the client. The rest is pretty much done for you. You did have a dependent. It took the dependent credit of $500 for that one dependent that we could claim. That was an other dependent. There was no child tax credit. It was just other dependent. So it goes straight on the 1040 form. And So the tax after the credits would be $42.69, which is this $47.69 less the credit for the dependents. That's how they came up with this. All of this is on your 1040 form. Also, because this employee or this person that we're filling out the tax return for had this amount of federal income tax withheld. This is the amount that he's already paid in. This is the amount that he owed for, so he gets a refund of $13.65. So all that's showing there. But when you get ready to file the return, you'll click on File Return. And then what I did is I wanted to look to see what the return looked like. So I just clicked on View Print Return. And then I clicked mask it here because this is not a return that can actually be filed. So I clicked on this and I created a PDF for that. And this is what you're going to need to download and save and submit in Blackboard. So click download the return, save it so you'll have it again, and then you just exit out of ProConnect because we're through basically with this. But I clicked on download, and in my computer, let me see if I can pull that up for you right quick. I can't see it right now on my computer, but if you download it, it's downloaded and you ought to be able to see that return. Maybe I didn't click download. I didn't. So this is what pops up as your answer. You'd have your company letter, and that just, this software does that automatically for you. This is the summary. These are the forms that they used. And this is showing a signature that you're the paid preparer. And then you would put in your 1040 form information, or excuse me, you don't have to put it in, it's already there. This is what the 1040 looks like. And this is what you need to submit to me is this information here. So once it's downloaded, save it to somewhere where you'll have it, and then upload it to Blackboard. And that's all you have to do for this one. So I'm going to stop sharing this with you, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.